Hello, my name is Willie Easter Jr. Continuing. This is another place I worked at, RSI Home Products, located in Lincoln County, North Carolina. I worked there from April 2014 until November 2017. I was put on full time in November of 2014, and I remained there for 3 years and 7 months. I was unable to get a job in Gastonia, North Carolina, in Gaston County, because they used my background against me a lot. But this video is going to show you a lot of the pros and cons and a lot of the hostility they have towards individuals who try to succeed. And I'm going to show you some of the reviews that people actually talk about with RSI. Some I agree with, but some I don't agree with. Because anytime you work in some of these manufacturing places, you get to understand, these people are not going to stand around and hold your hand. If you can't come in and get up to speed and learn how to work in a manufacturing environment, you're not going to survive there. So let's go in and read some of the reviews. Remember, this is coming from a website called Indeed, which I guess posts reviews and I guess anything that got to do with manufacturing companies. And you have to go to Indeed.com in order to understand how they base their ratings. Most of it's coming from ex-employees that work through RSI. They came in through a temp company like I did. I came in through Aerotech, which is a temp company actually based within the plant. And we're going to go through and I'm going to show you some of the reviews this company got. Now, the overall review is something like a 3.1. But you got to understand that varies. Because what they do, they gather reviews from a lot of the plants that's spread out over the United States. You got some that's in California. You got some that's in other parts of North Carolina. I worked at the Lincolnton plant. So most of the views I'm looking at is coming from the Lincolnton plant when I worked there. Of course, you get your ratings breakdown in the United States. Now, this person gave it a 5.0. Okay job. Former employee, Lincolnton. That's the plant I work at. And as you can see, it is a recent review. Coming to work in at 5:55 a.m. Clock in, sit down, and sit all day sorting things. Get up to use restroom or drink. 8:30 a.m. to 5:30 break, and then you got a 12:30 to 1 lunch. Then home at 3:30. Long hours, no phones. Breaks, you get the pros and cons. Breaks, easy money. It depending on the position you have. Cons, pay for lunch, long hours. Hot. Now, a lot of people complain about the heat at RSI. You got to understand, it's a manufacturing facility. All it is just a steel and concrete structure put up to manufacture. They're not put up there so you can be sitting in a condominium in the air conditioning, and they're not put up there so you can come in there living a luxury lifestyle. It's put up so they can manufacture, make the product, make the money, and you go home. And they tell you from the very day you start, it's hot in the summertime and it's cold in the wintertime, so dress appropriately. So when people complain about hot, I really don't pay too much attention to that unless you a person who can't stand a hot environment. Then don't work there. This is from Lincolnton. inspector, former employee. Again, it's from Lincolnton. It's also recent, August 12th, 2018. And he says, well, first of all, he gave it a 1.0 rating. And all he wrote at the top was, run. If at all possible, stay away from this place. There is no other way to put it. The management is terrible and the training is awful. If you have never worked in this field before, it's nowhere to start because they throw you on the floor and tell you to have at it. No proper training whatsoever. It is very hot all over the plant. They expect you to keep up with production, being new, and fuss at you when you're slow. Some, but not all, co-workers are absolutely mean. Now, that is true, but you have to understand, you have to learn how to survive in this type of manufacturing environment. If you are thin-skinned, you're not going to survive. I worked at RSI for 3 years and 7 months. You have to put on a thick skin, and you have to be real about it. You have to know when to stand up for yourself, know when to stand your ground, and know when to humble yourself. That's anywhere. If you're going in there wanting to have a good time, not work, sit on your butt, have long, winded conversations, this is not the place for you. Understand it's for manufacturing. These people are trying to make money off a product. They don't have no long life sob story. If they think you get in the way of their money, they'll find a way to get you out of there. Now, this guy was supposedly he was an inspector. It says in the corner right there. And his review, I said again, took place on August 12, 2018. That's recent. Because today is August 22nd, 2018. And a lot of them complain about the temp company that they hire you through, because Aerotech is actually based inside the RSI plant in Lincolnton. And they hire you through the temp company. Some come through the door, if you got no background record, but some come through Aerotech. If you got a background record, it takes longer before you get hired. If you got a clean background record, you can get hired a lot faster, and you can get hired full time. But those who come through the temp company will make more money, because the temp company wants to draw you into the plant, and they actually pay more money to get you through the door. But that wasn't true when I got started. When I started at RSI through Aerotech, I was only making $9 an hour. After 3 years and 7 months, I worked my way up to $13.60, and my overtime pay was $18.90. That's why I done a lot of overtime, to get the overtime pay. And he writes, pros, none. Cons, bad management, no training. So he went all out and pretty much explained his dislike towards the place. And you'll find out a lot with RSI. But like I said, there's different locations in the United States. This guy here is a former employer. Don't waste your time. There's a lot of favoritism. And with me when I was there, and this guy right here, he gives it a 1.0 rating. And he writes, don't waste your time. There's a lot of favoritism. And he was a full-time employee. Now he's a former employee. And you see he's not from Lincolnton. And that took place basically recently, August 6th. And he says, my time at RS was horrible. If you are Mexican, then you get special treatment, while others get no help. And again, it depends on who you deal with. Because when I was there, it was some favoritism, but that ended when they got rid of one of the management individuals in management. because she was showing a lot of favoritism towards a lot of Mexicans because she was Mexican. And then I recently hired another one. Her name was Anna, and she walks around in the plant thinking she's Wonder Woman. And I'm also a former employee of RSI, but I didn't get fired because of laying out. I didn't get fired because of like not doing my job. I got fired because I got arrested back on November 24th, 2017, after a dispute with my neighbors over trespassing and other things that were going on. And they said that I was on Facebook holding guns. And I always say the same thing, plural. And if you look at any of the pictures, which I will show you later on, the pictures show me holding a lockbox with a gun in it. And the gun was registered, my mother's name. And she's in a rest home. And the gun belonged to her. But I brought the gun into my home. It may have been unwise, but I don't think it was. But according to law enforcement, if you're a felon, you shouldn't have a gun, even though my felony charge was over 23 years old. And they still try to use it against you on jobs and everything else. I'm going to go more into detail on that later. But right now, a lot of people will warn you about RSI home products. And to me, the job wasn't a bad job, but they do have a lot of favoritism and a lot of ass kissing going on there. And their moral code is also low, because you got a lot of supervisors trying to date some of the employees there also. So that goes on everywhere. So you can't really point on out just RSI. A lot of them do that. And he also writes the pros are benefits, the cons, low pay, back problems, and headaches from management. And this guy right here, he's also a former employee, doesn't care about families, no work-life benefit, balance. And a lot of them complain about that. Because a lot of them didn't like working 6 days a week, 12-hour shifts. But me, I enjoyed it because I got no kids, and I'm not married. I got my own house, land, and a car. So I enjoyed the overtime. And they should realize right up front, they told them that overtime was mandatory. So you can't sit up and start complaining about it later on. And he's a production worker. He's still currently employed there. And that's as of July 22nd, 2018. So he's still there. But he's complaining about it. Pros, there's not many. His cons is what he don't like is working every Saturday, which they tell you right up front, overtime is mandatory. This guy gives it a 2.0. He's a former employee, and he was a production manager. Terrible place to work. And that's from Lincolnton, and that was July 21st, 2018. This was the worst experience I've ever had on a job. They don't care about employees. The moral is very low. The work conditions were hostile at best. The HR department was horrible. And I agree with some of that, especially about the moral implications. I mean, when you got supervisors trying to date employees on the floor, and they be married men, and they're supposed to be an example to the other employees in there, that is pretty low. But a lot of those guys who done that was terminated. So you can't sit back and say that it's something that frequently goes on. It goes on a lot until they get caught. Then they get terminated. Because while I was there was something like 3 supervisors who tried to date women in the plant. 2 of these guys was married, and they got fired. But for some reason, they won't fire the women. But then they started firing the women because people complained about that. They said, why are you firing just a man, just a male who does it, when it takes 2 to tangle? If the woman's not agreeing with it, if she's not laying in bed with him, then it can't be done. He can't do it by himself. She have to agree to be with him. So what they done? They caught a woman actually. I think it was during lunch break one day, from what I heard, and she was a Caucasian woman. It was during lunch break on the first shift, and she got her car and got a co-worker who was male, a black guy, and they parked the car between the trailers on the company property at the time. And there was surveillance cameras in between the cameras, or in between the trailers, that showed the trailers, because you understand they're going to keep an eye on their product because they don't want anyone going to steal it or vandalizing it. And they was foolish enough to park between the trailers where the cameras were and got in the car and had sex in broad daylight, right in front of surveillance cameras. And the security guard just sit there and let them finish, going back into the plant, and then they alerted management about it, and the black guy was fired immediately. But the female, it took time to fire her because it's like they got favoritism towards females, even though she was in the wrong. But eventually they fired her because they found out not only she had sex with him, she had sex with 4 other guys on the plant. And that's not the last thing. They also discovered that she was married. And her husband was overseas in the military. So not only was she having sex with all these guys on the plant, she was committing adultery on her husband, and he was overseas in the military. So guys, don't think for a second that your woman won't cheat on you, because if she get a chance to do it, she's going to do it. So stop putting women on pedestal, because I don't. They're human just like we are. And that's from Maiden, which is, they call it Maiden, North Carolina, but that's actually the Lincolnton plant. But you're actually in Maiden, but it's the Lincolnton plant. And he's basically saying, listeners, productive and fast pace. He gives it a 3.0 rating. And he's basically saying RSI is a good place to start. Like say if somebody just right out of high school or you are going to college in between. But that's not true, because most of the people who go to college and go to school quit. Because when I was there, most of the younger people were quitting. Because they're before the party. And they don't want to work on Fridays and Saturdays. Because as soon as they get their paycheck, what do you think a lot of them going to do? The ones who drink and want to party, going to drink and party and not come to work. It's the older individuals, those who are more mature, and there's another guy from, but he's a former employer, so he's a heavy cabinet line worker, former employer. A lot of these guys are former employees. He tried to give it a good recommendation, but for those who actually work there, knowing that it may, like I said, it depends on the individual and the people you dealt with. And I agree with him when he says that a lot of the people that didn't share the same drive and energy that he did. When I went in there, I was pumped up because I lift weights. And I work out. I ride a bicycle. And I hit the heavy bag. So when I went to work, I was pumped up, ready to go to work. But a lot of people come in there don't want to work. So it all depends on your lifestyle and the way you see life, if that's what you want to use. To me, I see it's work ethics. If you got good work ethics, then you'll do your job. And the list goes on and on. That's the one from Atlanta. It depends on, like I said, it depends on where you're from. And a lot of the good reviews didn't come from Lincoln. It come from other parts, like Atlanta or other places like that, or places like California. Now he says, great company, horrible managers. That's come from California. There's another one from Lincoln. Again, It's the Lincolnton, North Carolina plant that a lot of people have issues with. The issue I had with RSI Home Products is that, like I said earlier, I wasn't fired because of not working, or not coming to work on time. I ran out of work, trying to fool around with women on the job. I got a rule. I've been working for quite some time. I have never, ever, at any time, had any type of sexual relationship with any co-workers on the job. That's never happened. And I'm 54 years old. Anybody with common sense knows you don't mix business with pleasure, because it does not work. And the reason why a lot of people are getting fired from the job is because they want to mix business with pleasure. Any intelligent man and any intelligent woman will tell you, never mix business with pleasure. And this person here says, from Lincolnton, not a good place. He says, personally, I hated working at RSI. The products they make are low end, and so is the equipment. And I do agree with that, because when I was working there, they had a lot of pretty good forklifts. They got rid of all the good forklifts and kept the junk ones. And half the time they don't want to fix it. And the guy who's in maintenance who tries to fix it, they don't fund him. So he can't fix it. He had all he can do is keep rigging it up, which I think is dangerous. I don't know if it's true or not, but when I was there, it's like they lost 70% of the company because they was hiring people who would come in and want to smoke weed in the parking lot and drink in the parking lot, then come back in and do the job and be on the forklift. And they had an accident one night with this guy that was on the forklift, and we all was telling management that this guy was on something. And management really didn't want to do anything about it. But when he dropped one of the pallets from the racks to the floor, they finally had to give the man a test to see was he impaired or was he on drugs, and he failed the alcohol test, and they fired him right on the spot. After all this time, people was in there telling him that this guy should not be on a forklift, and he used that thing that you discriminate against me. You want to give all the job to the Mexican. He was a white guy, and the reason why a lot of people did not trust him on the forklift because he'd come in there like he was on something all the time. And he had a buddy who was the same way. They both would come in there and be wide open just to find out that both of them were either on drugs and he was definitely drunk. That day he dropped that pallet from the racks. And that's the Lincolnton plant. And like I said, I was fired due to I was myself being arrested back on November 24th, 2017, over a dispute with my neighbors over guns that they claimed I had, and I had one gun in a lockbox that were registered. And I lost that job because of that, because they said, well, you missed 2 days of calling in. I said, I was in jail for 47 days. And a lot of people have been questioning that now. Why were you sitting in jail for 47 days? Over a gun possession charge. And the gun was registered, even though you're a felon, you can't have it. Makes no difference. Why am I sitting in jail for 47 days? Losing my job. After 3 years and 7 months. As you can see, a lot of people said, was this review helpful? You had 40 said yes and 1 said no. There's always some old butthole in it to try to contradict everything. But if you actually worked at RSI and you see the atmosphere in there, you can't go in, like I said earlier, you can't go in there thin skin. Because these are manufacturing places. You're dealing with people from all walks of life. You don't know what they got in their mind when they come in there. You don't know what type of situation they're going through. And one guy had bought him a house. The guy was happy. He could pick good. Picking means he could pull the orders at a certain period of time and get the numbers they wanted. But he made one mistake. You go on the forklift, pull up beside a walkie rider, which is basically a electric powered pilot jack, and he picked it up with a guy on it. They saw it in front of the cameras, and they terminated him because it was dangerous for him doing that. He should have knew better. But then he ended up losing his house and everything else. And I saw him just recently, a few months ago, and he didn't look too good. But like I said earlier, stuff like that you don't do. And people, like I said about mine, people were questioning the fact that why did you sit in jail for 47 days? And one guy said, I think that's punishment because you were successful and you stayed out of trouble. Think about it, 3 years and 7 months, I was able to build a good checking account. God bless me with that. I got good credit, a high credit score, bought a brand new car. But when I got my car, I had to start out as a new credit person, a person basically buying a new car, and they gave it an opportunity. After 2 years, never missed a car payment. Everything paid on time. I was able to buy a house, $146,000 house, brand new, built from the ground up. And man, some guy was talking about it. He said, you realize they were looking for any little thing to get rid of you because you got a background record and you hadn't violated anything in over 23 years. And you got a brand new house. You got no kids, and you don't have no woman living with you. And this video will continue. Thank you for listening and viewing. Again, my name is Willie Easter Jr. Easter Delta Dream Films and Books, coming at you. Peace.